Hey, I'm Randy Younger, New York City's go-to film enthusiast. Every week, I dive deep into the world of cinema with special guests from the New York City film scene. Whether I'm interviewing industry insiders or comparing the latest releases, there's always something for every movie lover. Join me as I explore the magic of film and discover what makes these movies unforgettable. Hey guys, I'm Randy Younger, and this is another episode of Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together one frame at a time. And with me tonight, I have a wonderful panel of guest critics, as always. We have, in his second time on the show, Mr. Edward Douglas of The Weekend Warrior and Cinema Daily US. Ed, welcome back.
Hey, thanks. Great to be back so soon. I would think would be like a years before you want me back on the show.
Oh, no, you're awesome. You're awesome. You're welcome anytime. You know that. And also, new to the show, guest critic Mr. Max Keller. Max, welcome to
I
the show.
thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here and happy to talk about these movies.
So, gentlemen, we are going to discuss two films tonight. The first one is called The Heretic, and it's been out for a while now, but it is just so good that I felt like seeing it anyway and talking about it tonight. It is a horror film starring Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East, written and directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, and released by quite possibly my favorite distribution company, A24. And this film is very interesting. It focuses on two missionaries who visit Grant at his home. It's a very secluded area. And basically, things kind of take a turn. And Grant's character turns out to be not such a nice guy. Let's just leave it at that. And basically, traps these two women, these young women, and things just kind of spiral out of control. I am so glad we're about to talk about this film because it's just very original. And in a time where originality is a very rare thing, I think this movie is pretty refreshing. I'm not typically a horror guy, but this one was great.
That's interesting.
It wasn't overly gory, which I loved. It was kind of more a mix of psychological and, and also has a great commentary on religion. And I think Grant did his best work in this film, and I believe he was nominated for a Golden Globe for his performance, which
It
is
was.
very appropriate, and I really hope he wins. This movie is fantastic. I was not, I went in with like low expectations. I came out with, really satisfied with what I saw, especially from Grant. He really knocked it out of the park, and also the two young actresses, Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East, who are young stars on the rise. And yeah, between the three of them, this was just a fantastic film. Max, since it's your first time, I'm gonna shine the light on you, sir. What were your
All
thoughts
right.
on Heretic?
Uh, I had to watch both of these movies like in the same day today, so you know what, I saw the last one before, but I really liked Heretic. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name right. You're gonna have to
Heretic.
hold on. Okay, good.
Yep.
But yeah, I was really into the film. I found it very effective in terms of like how it was mostly getting this discomfort from this character being played by Hugh Grant and just like fearing for these religious people that are just trying to do their job at the end of the day, but know that something is up. I'm gonna be honest, I did feel a little worrisome that the film was gonna go in certain directions, like they keep mentioning the wife, or we can spoil, right?
Actually, I should have said, I'm sorry. This is a spoiler-free zone because this movie is still sort of new, and people watch this may not have seen it just yet. So sorry, Max.
Okay,
Spoiler-free.
don't worry, thank you. But yeah, I was worried it would go in some directions where certain plot points would be revealed in a way that would feel a little amateurish, and you could somewhat say some of them happened, but I will say like the film presented it in an interesting way where it's like, yeah, we knew you were thinking that. I thought the way it tackled these debates of religion were really good, and I feel like Hugh Grant really sold the character. Like he was doing great, honestly. I just loved how much he was into it.
I mean, I haven't really seen a performance like this from him ever. I don't know if he's ever really played a villain or kind of a morally ambiguous character. Maybe you guys can shine some light on that.
I'm gonna look it up.
Um, but
I'm
yeah,
not sure.
he was fantastic. I did, yeah, like I mentioned, like you, reiterated, Max. The religious discussions in the movie were really good. I thought that might have been one of the best parts of the film, and it was it's educational, and it really it makes you think about the history of religion and the current state of it. So yeah, good points, Max. Uh, yeah, Mr. Douglas, thoughts on the Heretic or
Yeah,
Heretic?
well, I liked it enough to go see it a second time, actually, very recently. I saw it before it came out. I actually interviewed the directors. I interviewed the two actresses. And really, it's really interesting thing. I mean, these guys are the ones who wrote A Quiet Place. They came up with the concept for A Quiet Place, so that led to a huge franchise. They're actually directors in their own right. They've been directing for a long time. And this is a project actually they actually had come up with before A Quiet Place. And it's really interesting because they told me that they basically did not want to make it until they had enough time to really do the research into religions and stuff like that, which plays such a key part in Hugh Grant's character, especially. But it's interesting because I don't really consider it horror so much. After I saw it, I was like, it's not really as horror as I thought. It's more like it's like
Thriller.
psychological thriller,
Right, right.
more like Hitchcock kind of thing. But it didn't bother me. I thought it was a very it worked as a comedy. It worked as a thriller. It gets you. You watch it, you're not really sure what's going on or what's going to happen, which is always a plus in my book. When you can watch a movie and not know exactly what's going to happen, that's always something I get excited about. So I definitely like this movie a lot. I definitely recommend it in theaters, at home, however you get a chance to see it. And Hugh Grant is great. I'd love to see him win the Golden Globe for comedy. I feel like that's kind of weak. The male actor category is kind of weak there, but
Mhm.
I think he's just as good a chance as anyone else.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him after this. This is fantastic. And I've really known him for like his romantic dramedies in the
Sure.
past. He did a great movie that kind of fell under the radar back in 1995 called 9 Months, which I absolutely love. And since then, since the early to mid 90s, he's been, kind of been the same guy, same character in all his movies. So
Except for
Heretic,
Oompa Loompa. Did you see him as Oompa Loompa
I
in Wonka?
didn't. I missed
Still need
the
to
Oh,
the
you
finish
missed
that
Wonka
a
movie.
movie.
great Hugh Grant role right
Oh,
there. Yeah,
really? Good
yeah.
time for him then.
Yeah, I've noticed like I was talking with a friend before I saw the movie who mentioned that Hugh Grant usually has been used very sparsely in most of the roles. Like, again, as you said, Randy, he's been known to be the romantic comedy guy, but I'm looking at some of the stuff like he was in the Dungeons and Dragons movie that just came out,
Oh
and
yeah,
what I
he's good in that
find,
too. That was a villainous role, kind of. Yeah,
yeah,
right.
but what I was thinking was like he's been used by directors that have been choosing to like get more out of him than what he's expected of. So that I really liked. I think that's very present in this film, honestly.
Yeah.
And also, I did want to ask one thing. How do we feel about this being considered a comedy by the Golden Globes?
Oh, I definitely think it's comedy. I thought it was
Oh.
hilarious. I
Okay.
definitely think it's comedy.
I don't.
I was laughing so much in at least the first half of the movie. It changes, gets darker
Okay.
later, but it's
I mean,
definitely
those are
comedy.
the only two. They only have drama and comedy and musical, right? Those are the only two acting categories, right?
Yeah,
So
those are the only
they
two.
should
It's
they should really do a thriller category. Dare I say action category? But
Well, those shows are long enough already. You don't need to add more time to these shows. But I want to point out the two actors, Chloe East and Sophie
yeah.
Thatcher, because I think they're both great. I think a lot of focus is being put on Hugh Grant and really taking away from what they bring to these roles that they play. They're playing, Mormon missionaries. They find a way to make them each character very different from each other. Um, Sophie Thatcher has a new movie coming out in January called Companion, where she has even more of a lead role. So she's definitely kind of an actress on the rise. And Chloe East was great in The Fablemans. I don't know if you saw The Fablemans, but she had
Oh
this
yeah.
great she had a great scene. She was like the religious nut girlfriend hookup of the Spielberg amalgam, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
him.
yeah, that was her.
But that
Yeah.
was her. She was great. I mean, so they're both really good. The movie works because these three actors, really good actors, being you give them a great script and just going up against each other and just doing whatever it takes to make this story work. So.
It's really great that young actors will get a script like this because it's very rare, like I mentioned. Movies like this are really these are a dime a dozen. So I'm really happy for the two lead actresses and of course Grant. I also wanted to mention real quick that the Church of Latter-day Saints had a reaction to the Mormons, and
Oh,
they praised the film for its realism and nuanced portrayal of Mormonism. So
nice.
that's pretty interesting.
And
And
I know it was shot in Park City because I recognized you know the stairs they're climbing up with the bicycles. That's
Right.
definitely in Park. I've been in Park City and I've seen those stairs. So they actually shot it right in Utah, I guess. So
Yeah,
to go.
they mentioned that they're from Utah, certain parts of Utah. I mean, Ogden and I
Oh
think
yeah.
Salt Lake City.
I was
So that's pretty
actually
interesting.
about to mention one of the aspects I did like about the film a lot was like how it would be so easy for like films in this day and age to portray people of Mormon religion that are like that faithful to it as like cartoon characters. Like they even mentioned in the first 10 minutes like the Book of Mormon, the musical, and
Oh
how
yeah.
that treats them. And what I kind of like is that as someone who hasn't been as religious as I was when I was a kid, like I actually felt for them. Like they made the characters really simple to care about, so that I thought was really good.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely very relatable, very likable. I'm not religious at all, but I think that their portrayal was it seemed pretty realistic. So I'm
Yeah,
happy with that.
exactly.
And I've never had attractive Mormons women coming to my door ever. It's always the guys in the ties. I'm not sure. I must be living in the wrong place.
I guess so.
They
Uh,
they would not be allowed into my apartment though, because I have no other women here. So
right. I'm trying to think if this movie was like, if this took place in New York City, would it be kind of a different tone or would they kind of have strike the same uh tone in that? I don't know. It's a weird thing I'm thinking.
I feel like people would be more meaner to like the two girls, honestly, just like
Hmm.
when they're trying to convert people, just slamming the door, being like, "Get out of my face" or something like that.
Yeah. I guess it's not really an urban thing to welcome strangers into your house and offer them blueberry pie.
hmm.
But uh,
But then again, pretty women might do better in New York getting converting than these two guys with neckties. I mean, I tend to shut the door in their face. So
there
Right?
you go. Um, so yeah, the heretic, or I keep saying the heretic. I think it's just heretic.
just
It's just
heretic.
Heretic.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed this film. This might even be on my top 10 for the year, dare I say.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
I
cannot wait
really
to
love
see that list.
the religious dialogue that they have. I thought it was very intelligent and very and handled very well. This might be on there for sure. We'll see.
Interesting.
But yeah. Um, all right. So the Heretic is still in theaters, just barely. I think it's like in just a couple of select theaters in Manhattan. Uh,
Yeah, you have to search it out, but it might be on VOD already, or it'll be
It is. That's how I
right.
watched it.
yeah, and also A24 it'll end up on HBO Max for sure. Like they have a
Mm,
deal with them,
Yeah.
so it'll be on Max within by January maybe.
yeah, and it is definitely worth checking out, guys. So those watching and listening, check out Heretic. It's awesome. All right, guys. So our second film of the evening is a little bit different in tone. It's the new Robert Zemeckis drama, not dramedy, really. It's a drama, and it's called Here, and it is basically shot in one location throughout the hour and 50-minute runtime, and it basically tells the multiple stories of the people that inhabit this house. In one shot, in one location, over the course of like thousands of years, maybe even millions. And it's a strange film. It's based on a graphic novel, and it's really a filmed play. And it stars the great Tom Hanks. You got Robin Wright, Paul Bettany, and Kelly Riley, who round out the main cast of this story. And it actually is the 30th anniversary, 30 years since the three of these wonderful people worked together on Forrest Gump. And yeah, that was back in 94. They also are reunited with screenwriter Eric Roth, cinematographer Don Burgess, and composer Alan Silvestri, whose score in here I think is one of the main highlights, one of the few highlights.
Definitely, yeah.
But I mean, this movie, I wanted to love it. I love Zemeckis. He's one of my all-time favorite directors, but this movie just kind of fell flat for me. And I think it did for a lot of critics. It also did not do so hot at the box office. I actually went to try to go see it maybe about a month ago, and they told me they had pulled it from the
Oh yeah.
theater. And I was so sad because it was still in the marquee, I think. It was still on their website, and I was ready to go see it because I love Hanks, I love Zemeckis. But I was totally let down at that time. But here we are now. Here we are now. And gentlemen, what are your thoughts on this film? Ed, I'm looking at you.
What I saw really interesting. You talk about the critics. I actually saw. the single press screening they did for this in New York,
Mm,
like the Friday before it opened, and it was probably like 30 critics, mostly New York Film Critics Circle critics, I
mm,
want to say. I was probably one of the few who's not in the New York Film Critics Circle who was there. And I could feel in the room. I could tell. I mean, I've been around critics
mm.
so long, so long that I could tell when critics are not liking something. I could tell when when there's a pall in the room. Uh, and I could tell, and I also know that the New York Film Critics Circle, like they know each other and they'll all talk about the movie afterwards. So if one person doesn't like it, they all won't like it, and that's pretty much it. I actually did not hate it. I actually appreciated what they were doing in this. Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's some funky things like there's some de-aging of Tom Hanks and Robin Wright to make you think they're teenagers, and no one's gonna watch this movie thinking, oh my God, they're teenagers who look just like. No, it's just like they use visual effects just like Zemeckis always does. So that's a negative. But I thought Kelly Riley was great in this. I thought she is an amazing actor who she appeared in Zemeckis' Flight also if I remember
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Back in
And
I
2012.
need to see
yeah,
that
she's
one.
such a good actor who's like really underrated. And unfortunately, because of the whole Forrest Gump connection, she's kind of being forgotten a lot. And Paul
Mm,
Bettany is also really good. I like that. I like the experiment. I like experiments like this.
mm.
I like when you're trying something different, when you're trying to like create something which is not you know just like the typical like as we talked about like franchise movie. It's not like a franchise movie. It's like a very specific you know story of a location and the people who inhabit it. And it was really interesting to me. It was like I did not hate it. I didn't go see it again. I
Right.
probably couldn't go see it again if I wanted to go see it again because it was gone. But I think it's and it's better than a lot of some of Zemeckis' other recent movies too, in my opinion. So
Oh.
it's not his best, but it's not his worst either.
Yeah, he's really gone downhill in the last decade. It's really, really
Definitely.
sad. I think Flight might have been his last decent film. He did this one weird movie with Steve Carell, Welcome to Marvel.
Oh, the Welcome to Marwin. Yeah, that was based on a documentary about this guy
I'm
who.
still scared to watch that movie.
Yeah, don't watch it. It's very. See, that's what I mean. When I compare here to Flight, it's like yeah, Flight's definitely better. But when you compare it here to that, it's like oh yeah, here is better than that. So sure.
And Tom Hanks as well. I think he's kind of in a little bit of a slump in the last couple years too.
Mm,
It's very
yeah,
sad 'cause he's my all-time favorite actor,
yeah.
but I have not really seen a standout performance from him recently. So that's sad.
I liked him
Um,
in Asteroid City.
oh, Asteroid City, that was decent. I didn't love that one either, but
Yeah, that's fine.
but yeah, this movie. I mean, again, Ed, I totally agree with you on Zemeckis and his experimental style. What he's doing, he's basically adapting a graphic novel to film, which is that it's not that easy, especially this source material. It's not that easy to do, but I think he did a decent job. I think what really suffered was the screenplay. It was
Mm,
it
Definitely.
was very syrupy and like, melodramatic, and I really that's what kind of took me out of the story. And some of the supporting actors were very kind of cookie cutter, and it didn't feel right. It didn't gel. And it's again it's sad because Zemeckis is known for some fantastic films, most notably in the 80s and 90s. But
You have them
here,
behind you.
yeah, yeah, there you go. Yeah, thank you. But here is definitely not one of his classics. So it's sad because the man is great, but sadly, this is not a great film. Max, thoughts on here?
I actually have a weird relationship with this film because when I first heard about it, I was just told that my parents really wanted to see it, and my mom was very like, no, the reviews are bad. My dad was like, oh, but it's like based on a time when I was a kid or a teenager, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna see it for myself because I didn't know anything about the film going in, just the two leads and the director. And Robert Zemeckis, you were like talking about how he's one of those directors that like had a good run and kind of fell off. I definitely believe that. And at first I was a little cynical, but rewatching it, I'm just gonna tell you how I feel.
Yeah.
Style the style blew me away, honestly, with like how it was just this one single shot that was like composed the exact way, framed in just one little space. And I like the squares, like how they kind of come across as like showing different periods of time. Like there's a good use of a Beatles song where they use that well. I think my biggest issue with the film, besides the visual effects looking like garbage, is that I feel like the film is pretending it's deeper than it actually is. Like
Yeah.
at at first I kind of was like, "Oh, it's like because there are multiple storylines throughout, like, okay, it's showing how multiple people have similar stories, similar struggles, similar like connections to this place." And I was just like, "Okay, I could vibe with that the first time, but for the second time I was just like, it's not really saying that much
Yeah.
when it kind of feels like with a concept like this that's presented this way really should."
Right. This movie is all style and no substance. I mean, very little substance, I'd say.
I was watching the movie. And I liked watching the backgrounds. I'm a big production design fan, big set decoration, and just watching how they're changing the room for the different periods and different characters was to me that was almost more interesting than the characters themselves. Was actually the backgrounds in some ways. But yeah, I'm kind of also like Max said when he said that his parents said, "Oh, the critics don't like it." It's one of those things that annoys the hell out of me. You know what? If you want to see a movie, go see it.
Hmm.
Screw the
Yeah.
critics.
Yeah.
It's like you know what? Critics tend to have their own opinion. They have their own different moods. Yeah, and they have grudges against filmmakers and things like that go into their reviews. So it's like,
Right.
if you want to see a movie, go see it. I mean, I'd say here, you know what? If you want to go see here on TV or wherever.
Yeah, I mean
Right.
that was my mentality going to that theater that night. I really wanted to see this. I loved most of the people involved in the film. And I heard it wasn't so great, but I wanted to see for myself, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad we're talking about it now. So I just want to talk briefly on Zemeckis's career from the past decade. So we definitely touched on Flight, which is fantastic. Did not see The Walk from 2015. Did you guys?
Oh yeah, that was.
I remember the trailers.
Yeah, it was so interesting because Walk is it was based that was also based on a documentary. It was based on the which I just literally just it's Man on Wire, which I recently saw again. That was an Oscar-winning doc, and he had
Right.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt playing this guy who walked the tightrope between the World Trade Center, and that was also a New York Film Festival movie. And I vaguely remember liking it at the time. I think it might have been like in 3D or IMAX or something like that. But after rewatching the documentary, I'm like, yeah, that probably wasn't very good. The documentary is so good and this
Hmm.
movie is probably nowhere. I mean, I want to rewatch the Walk because
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
kind of
going to check
interested.
it out myself. And I believe Zemeckis implemented some really innovative or special visual effects for that film as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
he did because he had to recreate the World Trade Center,
Right.
obviously, which no longer exists, and things like that. But and also, I wasn't as big a hater of Pinocchio as other people. A lot of people
Oh,
hate his Pinocchio,
so
Oh,
and
I
and
hated that, but I
oh,
just hate those Disney remakes personally.
and Tom Hanks was terrible in that. The
That
myth,
yeah,
the
after
that was
watching it, because I watched it during COVID, and I remember
oh
I was like, okay, it was okay. It was not terrible. It wasn't
no
great.
no the Guillermo del Toro version was a lot better. It came out
oh
the same.
yeah, that's
It was different. It was different, but I mean, on the
Um,
other hand, the Zemeckis one was more like the Disney one, which is what I loved. I love the Disney Pinocchio, so it's
right.
like,
okay.
yeah.
Um, and speaking of reinterpretations, he did The Witches back in 2020, I think that was originally an Angelica Houston film in the early 90s,
Yeah, Nicholas Roeg.
based on a Roald Dahl book. So that wasn't very good either. Before that, he did Allied, which I didn't catch. That was a Brad Pitt,
Mm,
Marion Cotillard,
yeah.
I feel like I should
and
have seen it.
Welcome to Marwen. So yeah, and I mean that's in the last decade, and yeah, those are like 5 or 6 movies that have demonstrated that Zemeckis has kind of lost his edge. It's sad.
And
Uh,
before that, he had the Christmas Carol, Beowulf. He was doing all that performance capture stuff.
even
So
before that,
all this stuff, the Polar Express, that was him too, right? The Polar Express. Yeah,
Polar Express I think was probably his last really good movie, and then he did Flight, I believe, a few years after that.
sure.
But we're never gonna capture the magic of Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, or even Castaway, which was just very sad because those were some really strong films, and he has not really recaptured that feeling lately. So that's very sad.
You mentioned Castaway. I usually had this theory about Zemeckis because Forrest Gump was like a big awards winner with
Mhm.
like that film, thinking like, okay, maybe like him winning the Oscar went to his head and that's why he isn't as good. But
Yeah, I
Castaway
don't
was a
know.
great movie, and as you said, you really liked Flight. So I don't know. My belief is now just Can I say one more criticism about the film because I lost my train of thought?
Yeah, of course. Mhm.
My biggest criticism with the film, I mentioned like the visuals looking like garbage, is that he used AI for the de-aging, which I personally hate AI to an unreasonable degree, and it only upsets me because like this guy was so passionate about pushing VFX. Like we've seen his work on Roger Rabbit and how like that basically helped animation live action hybrid, so it just feels like a cop out now that he's doing this. So that's just something I kind of despise
Yeah.
about the
Well, the
film.
other option is you'd have to hire one of the Hanks kids to play the younger Tom Hanks, like he did in that other movie last year, or a couple of
I
years
honestly
ago.
would have preferred that,
Oh,
honestly.
okay, yeah,
Yes.
Or at least like get a really good makeup artist.
Yeah.
sure, sure,
I think
yeah.
I mean, I thought the de-aging was okay. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the same type of de-aging they did in the last Indiana Jones. It didn't look great. You could definitely tell, obviously it's fake, but you could t kind of tell it's fake too. And I think they did a little bit of that with Demi Moore in The Substance in the opening sequence.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I
That
think it
makes
was
sense.
actually.
Okay,
But
huh.
it's fine. The movie's not great, but maybe over time it'll be better. Usually when I see a movie a second time, it does
It,
it enhances it for a little
You know,
bit.
it's a good movie. Like when I used to have cable, it's a movie you'd throw on. It was on cable. I'd throw it on, and it'd be on the background, and I kind of
Yeah,
look over and go like, oh, it's like, but it's
yeah,
like, I mean, I wouldn't pay $20 to go see it in a theater ever. That's for
right.
sure.
Good
S-
point.
since this is like my second time seeing it, I'm just gonna be honest. It only really works if you know nothing about it. Like, I
Hmm.
was expecting a traditional Oscar Beatty film, and when I saw like the style, I was like, this is kind of similar to Gaspar Noé, and I still hold that sentiment, but a part of me is kind of like, yeah, but it also needs like, as you said, Randy, more substance, I
Yeah,
guess. I'm
right.
sorry to depress you, Ed.
And if you do like here, I would not recommend any movie by Gaspar Noé. Just to, just to add to that,
Okay,
because
never
because
mind.
it's not it would not be your taste. If you really like here, Gaspar Noé is not going to be your taste.
Yeah, no, I was even like telling my parents like if you could handle Koyani Scotzi or something like that, you can handle this. But
Sure.
they saw it and my mom was just like, "What the heck was that?"
Mhm.
And so we only have like a minute or two left. I just wanted to touch on the score by the great Alan Silvestri. Is one of my all-time favorite composers, most notably for Zemeckis' other great film, Back to the Future. He also did a fantastic, probably the best action score ever for Predator back in 1987. And the man has been pretty reliable in over the past few decades. And I think, again, his score here is one of the main highlights. I thought it was very sentimental. It was just very touching and beautiful. And he really tugs at the heartstrings, which he did a lot also with the second half of Castaway. Some really good thematic music there. But real quick, Ed, Max, what are your thoughts on Sylvester's scores, particularly this film?
For this film, it was actually better than I remember because I wasn't paying attention to it the first time. Where for this movie, I remember being like, this actually feels like a classic Zemeckis film. Like, this could feel right in line with Forrest Gump. And I think it's a really good score. It's not my favorite score of the year, though. That's all I'm gonna say.
No, no, no. Agreed, agreed.
Yeah,
Cool.
I don't really have an opinion on it. I mean, I like his music, I guess. I mean, I guess it was not something I really. I mean, I think it was good. I don't think it was anything that, again, not like my favorite of the year, but it did its thing. It did a good job with the emotions and stuff.
Fair.
It did what
Fair.
it had
Okay,
to do.
guys. Oh, sorry, Max.
Oh no, I was just saying it did what it had to do for the film, and
Yeah,
I
pretty
think
much.
it
Yeah.
worked.
That's
Yep.
true. All right, so we are coming to a close. I just want to mention that Heretic is still in theaters, and I don't think Here is anymore.
No.
But both are on Amazon Prime Video, so feel free to rent those. They're worthwhile, I'd say. All right, guys. So now is the time for plugs. Is there anything you guys are working on? Anything you want to mention at this time? Ed, I'll start with you, sir.
Well, I'm just doing my regular Weekend Warrior column. I do that every week it's on Substack. You can find it there. I do reviews. I do box office stuff. I cover repertory stuff. So if you're in New York and want to see old movies, My column is a good place to find out what's playing that weekend. And I do stuff for Cinema Daily US. I've one more interview this year, and then the rest was I have stuff for January. But my year is definitely wrapping up. I just gotta finish up next week's movies and do a top 10, and then I'm done.
Mac, how about yourself, sir?
I don't really have that much to plug. I feel like if I just mention my Letterboxd account where I do most of my movie reviewing, I'll be like pretentious about it. But if you want to plug it, you can.
I think I just followed you on Letterboxd actually.
Oh,
Ah,
really?
Yeah,
That's funny.
perfect. See, it's already working.
yeah.
Cool.
I'll
All right.
take it. Enjoy my overly long sentiment about how Interstellar and 70 millimeter made me rethink Nolan.
Oh. That's you at the Lawrence of Arabia thing, right? At the front top?
No, I don't think so, honestly.
Oh, that's a different Max Keller then. Okay, let me find you then because I've
Here.
Up.
putting in the
T2, I love it. Honora, yes.
Oh, okay. Oh,
These are
okay, got
just
it.
my
Okay.
favorite per the month. I have a whole list of my favorite movies, but
Beautiful.
Okay.
yeah.
I was gonna start a debate with you about Lawrence of Arabia, but that's not you, so there's no point then.
That's another
Well, still,
episode, Ed.
Yeah.
Save that ammunition for
I'll,
another
I'll
time.
be there. I'll be there.
All right, guys. And so for me, you can catch Under the Radar on SiriusXM through Slam Radio, and that is channel 145 on Sirius. That's every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and Saturdays at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Also, the video version of this podcast will appear on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and that is every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And feel free to subscribe to the Under the Radar YouTube channel and to share the love. So, Ed and Max, I want to thank you so much for this tonight. This was a great episode as
Thank you so
always.
much for having me.
Yeah, how do you feel, Max? Did you have a good time here?
I had an awesome time. This was amazing. I hope my presence was worthwhile to you guys.
It was great. I can't wait to have you back
Same
on.
with
It's gonna
them.
be real
Thank you.
soon. All right. And Ed, as always, you're always welcome as well, sir. All right, guys. So I'm Randy Younger. This has been Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. We'll see you next time. Take care.